Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day to day lives. Let's start with the video. My mother has always had a problem with me. Sometimes I feel like she just doesn't like the way I exist because ever since I was like a child, I've been subjected to her snide remarks, taunts, and comments. Needless to say, all of these had a tremendous impact on my mental health, and I became a very insecure, lonely, and troubled teen. Constantly getting into terrible relationships, friendships, and overall living a hell of a life. All of it was due to the fact that my mom simply wasn't able to accept and get over the fact that my dad had left us because she was psycho and a piece of work. When my mom would go on and on about him, trying to convince me just how bad he was, all I could ever think of was how happy I was for him because he escaped from the shackles of my mom. I mean, yeah, I definitely did resent him a bit for leaving me behind, but who would I be lying to if I said I didn't know that it was probably some sort of sick idea of my mom to keep me away from him? Well, after suffering through my mom's torment almost all my adolescence, you guys can only imagine how fast and far I ran away from my mom once I got into college. That was a blessing because in college I was able to really bloom how I was as a person. I made new friends, new memories, new experiences, and realized that life isn't really as bad as my mom made it out to seem. That is when I started to take risks, stopped being as much of a scaredy cat as I was, and made the decision to try to find my dad. It wasn't an easy process because I had very little information about him. I mean, my mom did talk a lot about him, but I obviously couldn't find him based on a bunch of negative adjectives she spewed out about him. So I had to do my own digging and my own research. After what felt like an eternity, I finally found a Facebook account that resembled him. I shot him a message, not expecting much in return, but to my utter surprise, it only took my dad a day to respond to me. We began talking, and of course, as it always goes, my dad was nowhere close to what my mom had described. He was extremely kind, caring, and welcomed me with open arms into his family. I started spending more and more time with him, and by the time I graduated from college, I was left with no loans as my dad had helped me out with my tuition fees on top of the money he had been sending my mom to care for me. My mom got a hold of the entire situation eventually and, of course, didn't like it. She was enraged because apparently she deserved a payback as well for all the years she's put up with me. We got into a huge screaming match after that because this time I put her in her place. I was dead tired and done with her trying to make me feel like a useless weight on this planet when that was all her. We argued a lot and it led to nothing. I simply just left her house and haven't returned there since. Not hearing back from her made me think to myself that maybe she too had realized her mistake and wanted her space away from me. It felt like a blessing, but that wasn't the case. Things weren't as simple and were messed up way beyond what I thought. By the time I found out all about it, it was too late because I received a call from the hospital informing me that a bill was going to be issued under my name for thousands of dollars. I immediately drove myself to the hospital. I knew this was something to do with my mom. I was almost worried about her well being, but then as I reached there and was greeted by the cops informing me how my mom had hurt herself as she tried to enter my house by shattering the glass windows, all my worry for her was replaced by shock. I was speechless. The morning that all of this happened, I was with my dad and his family grabbing brunch after having a movie night with them. So I absolutely had no idea that all of this was going on. I was absolutely stunned because on top of all this, My mom had tried to convince the cops and the hospital that she lived there and broke in because I wasn't letting her in. I instantly made it clear to all of them that it was absolutely not true. I pulled up the house documents that I had on my phone and even offered to let them into my house and show them that none of her belongings were there. I guess that was enough for them because my mom's story, like most of the times, switched a lot and did not match up. I guess after a week of that, my mom returned home and hasn't stopped blowing up my phone for not paying the hospital bills. According to her, I owe her this because she only got herself into trouble to teach me a lesson and to show me that it was her who had taken care of me all these years when my dad did absolutely nothing. I'm honestly fed up with her and my aunt spamming me on the daily now. I'm literally thinking about pressing the charges I wasn't going to because of her behavior. But my dad says I should just let her be because she's clearly struggling already, which I know, but still can't help feeling frustrated over. AITA. I went to the hospital first thing after I posted this and ended up getting my name out of the bill cleared out. I mean, I pretty much already had the moment I went to the hospital and found out about it all, but it was good that you guys suggested that I do it once again, just in case, because there was definitely confusion. My dad, working in the healthcare sector, knows his way around the hospital, so it was him who did all the work majorly. The bill isn't anything huge. Well, it is, but it's considered to be in the normal range for American hospitals. My mom has a job of her own and gets paid very well. I guess it's just the fact that my dad and I both refuse to give her money and feed into her stupid demands. She's angrier than ever now, and I think I've finally reached a point that I'm ready to go to the police station by myself because looking at my mom behave the way she is, I'm truly at a loss for words and can no longer be the good person and the saint like my dad is towards her. I believe it's about time that she learns her lesson finally, even if that means most of my relatives will be upset with me. I filed a report to the cops about my mom's breaking in. She was immediately arrested by the cops, and as far as what the lawyer I have inquired to has told me, she's going to be facing a bunch of community service, jail time for about a year, a fine, and prohibition. Hearing that was honestly satisfying because I realized it's going to take a long while to get out of jail, and I would no longer have to be dealing with her BS. No one is happy with my decision. Even some of the relatives of my dad's side of the family, because apparently my mom is old. And I should really consider the fact that she was there for me when my own dad had left me. I responded instantly that the only reason my dad ever left me was because of her inability to keep a happy family and her inability to try to set up a custody agreement. I told them all about her attention-seeking attempts, her horrible behavior towards me, and reminded them of exactly why she is where she is currently. I guess suddenly they're all quiet about it all because they no longer want to give me lessons about respect and love. My dad, who too went on and on about how dragging mom to jail was too much, was shut down by my stepmom today. Bless her heart, because even though she was pretty harsh, her message that if my dad didn't shut up about my mom and me being on her side, he'd probably lose me again, which made my dad shut up finally. The message went through to him as clear as ice, and now he's quiet too. Here's the final update that you guys kept asking me for. I got my money back for all the damages, and mom was sentenced to probation and jail time for a year, just as the lawyer had predicted. There are definitely still a lot of people my mom left behind manipulated into believing that she was this saint of this person who was put into jail by her daughter for trying to stay in contact with her. Just like my mom, I have made sure to block away these people as far as I can too, and I just hope it stays this way. I have also decided to move out of the house I was living in, which belonged to my dad. I used to pay him rent, of course, but after all this happened, though, I feel pretty much unsafe in it and thought moving out into a smaller apartment would be the best option. This has allowed me to start saving for a better and a bigger house as well. I think overall, at the end of the day, this situation was as distressing as it truly opened my eyes as to how much I can endure and how important and peaceful it really is cutting out toxic people out of my life. Thank you all. NTA, your mom is a freak, and so are the people who are supporting her. Your dad seems like all the manipulation your mom put him through is kicking in, and he's starting to feel guilty for having you in his life. Please don't push him away, unless he's crossing boundaries because he's as much of a victim as you. NTA. Holy hell. What's up with the relatives being crazy followers of your mom? If they think she's so much of a saint, though, then they should definitely pay for all her crazy demands. I, 25 female, am the youngest of 5 kids. I recently moved in with my fiance, and my family is still adjusting to it. All my older siblings were used to having an extra set of hands because I would usually help with anything they needed with any of their kids. The issue is with M, female 33, has 2 kids. I now live in the same state as M, and I don't like to babysit specifically for them. They are unorganized and they don't even follow up when I have their kids. Therefore, we've had issues, and it's really strange that I babysit or even visit them as much. I've had talks with M and told her I dislike babysitting for them, and my reasoning. I think she does get upset because I hardly said no to my other sibling when it came to babysitting. The current issue is any time I mention I'm going to travel and visit my parents, M or my parents always want me to take one of the kids. I know this may sound selfish, but when I want to go visit is to enjoy my parents and not have to take responsibility for anyone's kids. My parents always say they'll take care of them, but my dad is usually away for work and my mom has a medical condition. So the days when she doesn't feel fine, I feel like it'll be my responsibility to step up. This time, my parents offered to pay for my visit, but before I bought my travel ticket, they asked that I bring my nephew. I refused at first since I would not be flying directly to my parents' city. My dad was going to be away for work in another city, and I would meet my dad there. Then we would drive home together. 12 hours total driving. I eventually said I would take my nephew, but M or her husband would need to meet me at the airport the morning of. But my mom was pushing for me to allow M to drop off my nephew a night before. I refused because I want to have a good night's sleep the night before I have to take care of my nephew for 12 hours on the road, plus the flight. My mom told M, and M was upset. M told my mom she won't send her son because she doesn't want to ask anything of me anymore and would rather have my other sibling who lives with parents come and get her son. I told my mom I was tired of being the bad guy and I would simply just not visit. My mom is now upset. AITA for not wanting to take my nephew on my trip? NTA, it isn't selfish to want to get enough sleep or manage trips without a child that isn't yours. Kids really struggle with trips in a lot of ways. Even the most well behaved and reasonable little ones can disrupt sleep, personal time, and require a lot of care. You sound like you do a lot for your family, and it'll be a battle to untangle the expectations they have around you in this area. That being said, it also sounds as if they manipulate your feelings of obligation and guilt, and that isn't okay. If they'd asked and dropped it, it would have been fine ish. NTA, it looks like both M and your parents got used to you babysitting whenever it was convenient to them. Now that you are no longer available on demand as you used to, they are upset. They think they were entitled to your time when actually it was a privilege. The challenge for you now is to make them accept the new reality without damaging your relationship with them, assuming it's a relationship, otherwise worth saving. Good luck standing your ground, OP, and all the best for the business you're starting with your fiance. Absolutely NTA. M sounds like a spoiled, selfish toddler who doesn't get their way and pouts. They all know that you don't like their kid. So why do they keep asking? You're a grown adult now, live with your fiance, and they're still trying to treat you like you're their teenage babysitter. Set the boundaries now, or this will continue until these nieces and nephews are adults themselves. Remember that no is a complete sentence. You should be able to go visit your parents without taking care of someone else's kids. I have an apartment in my home country and have been renovating it. I inherited it from my close uncle, Joe, but needed to buy a part of it off my cousin, Joe's nephew and sibling of the other two cousins in this text, as he owned part of it. It wasn't big of a deal as his part was very small and he'd rather have the money and couldn't have paid me out anyway. So we agreed peacefully, and I offered him to stay over if he comes back to our home country. We are on good terms even now, and he thinks that people are acting ridiculous as well. I made very quick fixes to everything and haven't thought about renting it out or do anything with it. I went back last year and this summer for a few weeks, and it was nice to have a place of my own. I like the thought of a vacation home and want to keep it that way. Some other relatives of mine, all late 20s, early 30s, have been a pain in the A these last years about living in their old home, my now flat. They haven't made good decisions and are generally the parasitic type of person. They lived at my aunt's until they got kicked out, worked on some farms, and got caught stealing. You get the picture. They now live and work in some sort of barn of a farmer, but he can't afford to have them anymore because of the inflation and other issues, apparently. Of course, I got contacted by them and they asked me to just stay for a few weeks, maybe 2 months, until they get back on their feet. And they would contribute by continuing to work on it. There is nothing to fix in that flat, so it doesn't make any sense, but I know they just don't want to pay rent, if any. My mother, some uncles, and an aunt called out of the blue asking me why I refused to help the family out in this bad time and why am I sitting on the apartment like a chicken. It's a saying here. I think you get it. I said I know they won't leave, probably destroy it, and I remember them about that time these cousins of mine had thrown me into nettles down the hill and other stuff when they weren't so nice in the past. My mom said I am behaving like a child. This is long in the past, and they are about to be homeless. If I would also let her live on the streets if she was in a bad situation? I was furious because she was comparing apples with pears, and as she didn't want to understand my position, I said, yes, of course I wouldn't. Yesterday, I got called out to be a gigantic because I would rather have people live on the streets instead of giving them a home and enjoy my lavish lifestyle with my vacation home. So, AITA? I have flat. Unpleasant cousins want to live in it. I refuse. Mother calls to convince me not understanding my point. I said I'd refuse her too. She felt hurt. Now I am the AH. NTA, you owe them nothing. I am so sick of this attitude that if person A has more than person B, then person A is TA for not giving to person B. Screw person B. Person B, in almost every case, is a freeloading leech that somehow gets other family members to argue on their behalf. It's worth mentioning that these same family members never offered to help person B themselves, yet feel comfortable calling out person A for not doing what they themselves were not willing to do. Plus, it's usually person B has taken to FB, and now everyone is on their side. Makes me so happy that Reddit is the only social media I use. No FB, no Snapchat, Twitter to get news on Destiny 2, and Instagram only to make my hair appointments. Screw these people, dude. Enjoy your vacay home. You don't say which country the flat is in, but here in the USA, it's never a good idea to let anyone hang their hat for weeks. Once they use the address as their place of residency, it's so hard to get them out. Courts side with the freeloaders more than the person who owns the place. NTA. I have had relatives stay at a house I owned in one state while I lived on another. Reader's Digest version of a bad experience, it sucked wide. I found out later that it wasn't just two relatives, but at least four more people moved in as well. I had no idea. You can't pick your relatives, but you can tell them no loudly and often to keep your property intact. Good luck. NTA, you don't owe anyone space in your home, especially bulky cousins who treated you horribly in the past. They are adults who can find their own place, but bothering you and trash your home up. Next time someone harasses you about them, turn the tables on them. Well, since you're so concerned, why don't you take them into your home? That would solve everything. Nope. Change your locks and add some cameras for security if you're not there full time, and make sure they don't move in behind your back. Getting them back out later will be worse than saying no now.